was Friday night, and Vicki and I had supper downtown. Actually, one of the pastors of our church, it was Justin and Kira Schwarzentraub down from Washington near Peoria. Anyway, they'd driven up. We had dinner together. Then we went to a concert. Vicki and I ended up staying downtown because I had a commitment with a group of pastors on Saturday morning. Great time. And we're at the concert that evening, and they're introducing some of the pieces of music. Now, let me just I want to be perfectly honest with you, because as your pastor, I feel like you need to know the truth about me. Man, it was a concert at the Chicago Symphony Orchestra of classical music. But I'm not going to turn to my man card, because I learned to love classical music through Bugs Bunny. We're talking about today, we're going to wrap up what we didn't get through last week, and then this week, Ephesians chapter 6. It deals with children and moves right into our jobs. Here's what was written in the playbill about the concert one of the movements of the concert we saw. Moms of young children, you here? Yeah, I know most of you in the second service, but Misty, I saw you. Some of the others I know, you have younger children. See if this doesn't describe your life as well. Three? Yeah, young ones? All right. The first movement is usually, I'm talking about your day. Here's your day with young children. The first movement is usually explosive and driven, with quicksilver shifts of mood and tempo. From unexpected silence to fierce outbursts. Maybe you're thinking, that's more like my marriage, but don't comment on that. That was last week. Then we move to midday. The second movement offers neither rest nor relaxation from the first. It sounds uneasy and restless, parents. And then we go on to the evening. It's been a long day of school, or battling diapers with preschoolers, or trying to get them ready for bed and homework. The mood remains intense throughout. Then in the dazzling and exhilarating movement, Beethoven, let me change that. Parents seem almost desperate to flee, to leave the dark and troubled world behind. The effect is sudden and unexpected and extraordinary. Tell me that's not your life. That's what it's like. See, you too love classical music. You just didn't know about it. Ephesians chapter 6. Go ahead and turn there. Ephesians chapter 6. We're going to read the first 9 verses. We're going to talk for about the first 10, 12 minutes about parenting and children. And then we're going to shift to the world of work. What I love about the scriptures is this. They meet us where we are. If you as a parent are ever asked about your children, can you talk about them? I mean, come on. Are you proud of them? Usually. You love them fiercely? Okay. If you go to a party, you meet someone new, after your name, what is the first thing they're likely going to ask you? What do you do? Our families, our jobs, it occupies the lion's share of our time and energy and resources. Here's the truth. Jesus offers hope to our most important relationships. The scriptures speak to this issue, or the issues, that occupy most of our waking time and thinking and the things about which we are concerned and worry. And not only that, do the scriptures speak to them without reservation. The scriptures offer hope for those things. So, as a reminder, the theme of our study through the book of Ephesians, how God has placed us in our exact same situation, or our exact situation in life, and He has meant us for more. More than survival, more than getting through one day to the next, to the next, to the next. We don't just work through the week so we can get to the weekend. Unless you're me, you work on the weekends. What you do is you're destined, you're designed to make a difference, a positive difference. That should bring hope. It should sanctify family and work. And so from Ephesians chapter 6, let me read the first 4 verses. They deal with children and their responsibility to parents, and it deals with parents, especially fathers, and their responsibility to their children. Children, obey your parents in the Lord, for this is right. Here quoting from Exodus 20, the Ten Commandments. Honor your father and mother. Somebody's with me on those first movements in the morning. This is the first promise, a commandment with a promise. Here's the quote, that it may go well with you and you may live long in the land. Some of the fathers are like, if you don't straighten up, you're not going to live very long in the land. And so that didn't start with us. That started all the way back in the Old Testament. Verse 4, fathers, the word patria, fathers, those who are leading the home, fathers, mothers, especially if you're a single parent, father, mother, it is basically those who are carrying the weight of authority in the home, and that better be the parents, right? Do not provoke your children to anger. I love that there's a positive. Bring them up. Interesting word. Bring up means to nurture. This speaks of care, thoughtfulness, involvement, being engaged, not being disengaged in the life of the home. Do not provoke your children to anger. Bring them up in the discipline and the instruction of the Lord. And so, question is this: how do I win at home? I said it last week, just in preview of this week. I have known men and women who are really effective in their roles. Maybe they're crushing it at work, or building the next big thing, or entrepreneur, and they give attention to detail, but then they come home and they check out. We're not offered that. Meant for more means that God means for us to have deep, lasting impact in the home. There is nothing you will do, listen to me, dads, moms. There's nothing you will do in your career that will have a deeper impact on this world than what you do in the lives of your sons and daughters. It is the legacy that will outlast you, outlive you, and speak of your heart in the home. Now, let's start with the children. How do I win at home? Children, honor and obey your parents. 2 reasons given for that. One, it's just the right thing to do. I love the Bible puts the cookies on the bottom shelf. This is the right thing. Children, to honor, to give the appropriate deference to parents, but that results in obeying. Interesting, the idea of obey is the idea of listening under. In other words, children, you need to listen to mom and dad and then live under their authority. So, well, how long? Like, if your parents are still living, does that mean when you're 40? No, you'll be establishing a new household. However, it does mean you're going to honor your parents for lifelong. It does mean, like when Vicki and I bought our first house, my dad was not only tool and die, but he also built houses. Like, I listened to him. I actually walked him through the house before we bought it and asked for his opinion, and he did this and that and the other thing. Yeah, Scotty, go ahead, you should buy this. It would be a great house, and it turned out to be that way. Vicki and I made the decision about buying, but we honored mom and dad, in this case dad, by listening to his counsel, his advice. Children, teenagers, yes, you're smart. You may even be quicker on the phone or the internet or the electronic devices than your mom and dad, but nobody loves you more and knows you better than mom and dad. And so, yes, you need to obey them. You need to be able to trust them that they are for your good, because they are. Honor them. As difficult as it is sometimes to do that, to honor them. Now, it does say in the Lord, so we're not talking about parents that might ask you to do things that would be cross-grain against what the Lord invites you to do, or ask you to do immoral or unethical things, of course. But that's an extremely rare situation. How do I win at home? Children, honor and obey your parents in the Lord. This is right. This is appropriate. It brings blessing. It says that you may live long in the land. Now that's a quote from the Old Testament where God promised, if you will honor your parents, you'll stay in a long time in the place of his blessing. In that case, the Old Testament, the promised land was a place of promise, God's blessing. And so, children, if you want to prosper and thrive, you want to get off on the right foot in life, obey your moms and your dads. Honor them. Say, well, I have a mom, I don't have a dad in the home. You have an uncle, older brother, older sister, somebody that can speak into you, speak into your life. Obedience and honor is the right thing. Parents. So children honor and obey their parents in the Lord. Parents, we need to know, love, and equip our children for life. That's our job. It starts by deeply knowing our children. And you get this, right? You can, even if you have twins, immediately pick out that this one likes this, doesn't like this. This one has a proclivity or an aptitude for this. This one, no. For one, it's sports. For another, it's music. For another, it's business. For another, it's a medicine, whatever. You'll pick that up. Parents, that's our job. To be observant enough into home to recognize my children are not all alike. Now, our kids are all adopted, and still the Lord in his good humor gave us opposites. You got biological kids maybe. You're like, where did they come from? Our job, parents, is to know them. To what I do with the scriptures called exegete. You take truth out of it, and then you deliver hopefully something beneficial for the people. You and I are called to exegete our children. To know them as the ages and stages that they go through and to be appropriate in our love for them. Know them, love them. Love, by the way, is not indulgence. Love is, we'll see in a moment, love is also setting firm, clear boundaries. We know them, we love them. Here's the big one. We equip our children for life. Psalm 127, it's wonderful. I don't know if you know who Kayla Davenport is. She leads worship sometimes here, often at Carroll Stream, and she actually directs worship across all 3 locations. Kayla just had her third. They had a little daughter on, Vicki, remind me, was it Thursday night? Wednesday night? I don't know. Boy, if she doesn't have details, I don't. All I know is I had a notification waiting for me at 6:30 that morning. She had that baby. And Kayla, I will go to see her. I will read, her and Andrew, I will read Psalm 127. It's one of my favorite jobs as a pastor is to stand by the bedside or be in the home if somebody had a brand new baby. Psalm 127 says, like arrows in the hands of a mighty warrior are children of one's youth. So, right, yeah, it's like, in other words, this is great. Now you think about that. Arrows, think of a bow and arrow. Arrows in the hands of a mighty warrior. That's what kids are like. That tells me, arrows, I know they will stay often in the case, but that tells me they're designed to be taken out, strung, and sent on flight. Recognize, parents, begin with the end in mind. Our job is to equip our kids and then launch them, and hopefully they make an impact. They hit the target in life. We've got to know them, we've got to love them, and we've got to equip them in life. And that requires some intentionality. Kids don't just grow themselves up, and they're not accidentally successful. Parents, we need to know, love, and equip our children for life. The scripture says we should do 2 things. One, discipline them. Discipline the instruction, discipline that raise them in the discipline instruction of the Lord. Discipline means firm and fair boundaries. It means guardrails. Vicki and I don't go bowling anymore because she beats me every single time, and I'm so insecure. I hate bowling. Little known fact, Dave, I actually had to have a PE credit my senior year of college. I chose bowling. It was very bad. But the one way I can actually break 100 once in a while is you've seen the bumpers? Oh, some of you know what I'm talking about. The bumpers come down, and rather than gutters about every third ball that I roll, which is typical, they bump and they bump and they bump. And you know what they do? They usually get pretty close to hitting the target. Parents, discipline is like bumpers in bowling. We don't want our kids in the gutter, am I right? What we want is for them to be able to hit the target. And that's going to require that we set some boundaries, some guidelines. That's when we talk about the discipline and the instruction of the Lord. Now, discipline is firm and it's fair. Okay? It should be expected, not unexpected. Right? One of the mistakes, I think certainly when I was young, same thing. When we're young and we're not thinking long-term about equipping our kids, sometimes it's like, when they irritate me, I'll get after them. But that's reactive discipline. Proactive is I'm clear this is the boundary in our home, the way we're going to treat other adults respectfully, the way we're going to take our responsibility for homework and cleanup and things like that, and we're going to proactively form discipline in the lives of our sons and daughters. Instruction is the positive side of that. Now, by the way, discipline I think is very positive. It like a Jell-O mold, when they're young, they have external pressures, constraints, discipline, that ultimately form their character, So as they get older and the constraints are taken off, they are formed as men and women with self-discipline. Instruction means to put into the mind. The root of the word is your mind. So instruction is about the right kind of content. On the positive side, we teach our kids what's right and wrong. We teach our kids instruction in life, and that is in the Lord. Discipline and instruction of the Lord. Instruction positively is educating. Negatively is limiting. So on the positive side, we're making sure they're getting good, clear, truthful content. This is why we need to be actively engaged in the life of educating our sons and daughters, whether that be homeschool, private school, public school. That's your conviction. We did 2 of the 3, public and private, with our kids. But for sure, we were dialed into that. We were active in the school district when they were public schools. We were active in the school district or the private school when our kids went to a private high school. We are giving them the instruction on that. I'll give you a perfect example of this. It's a couple years ago now that I had a kind of a cut, turned into kind of a bit of an open wound, and so I got some medical tape, and I'm a doctor, just not the kind that can help anybody. And this is just show you the limit of my medical. I put that tape on there. I thought I'm going to be all good. And a couple days later, I looked, and it was kind of red and not good. And so I thought, well, I'll put more tape on it. Because, right, if a little's good, a lot's better. And opened it up a few days, it was even worse. So I put more tape on it and wrapped all the way around. I'll show you. It took me a week and siren red skin to realize the thing I was doing was making it worse. I was having a skin reaction to the tape. Right? Goofball, what in the world, right? Our kids just don't know some things. Our job on the positive side, here's what works. And on the negative side, stop doing stupid stuff, right? Don't do that. The discipline, the instruction of the Lord, and in doing so, what we do is we equip our kids for life. Super helpful to me. I heard this about 20 years ago. It's always stuck with me. Parents should demonstrate wisdom that makes it advisable to obey. Talking about parents in the home. Parents should demonstrate wisdom that makes it advisable to obey, authority that makes it necessary to obey, and love that makes it delightful to obey. This is our job. Thanks, Kurt. That's worth a snap for sure. Leave it up for a moment, Ken. And boy, is that helpful, been helpful to me over the years, especially growing up in a home where we struggled in a lot of ways. I just, when it came to rearing kids, looked around and said, who do I know that's crushing it with child raising, and I'm just going to mimic and imitate them. And that, by God's grace, thus far has worked out pretty well. Here's the negative. Do not provoke your children to anger. Now, it's addressed to fathers, so I think there's a special way that fathers have such a special place in their sons' and daughters' lives, but the command would be equally true for anyone that's providing authority and leadership in the home. Do not provoke them to anger. At least 4 ways we can provoke sons and daughters to anger. One is we're distracted. It may be commitment to work, it may be commitment to football, it may be commitment to whatever. But if we're distracted and we don't have time for giving our sons or our daughters our full attention, that can provoke them. Distracted, critical. I mean, God help the son or daughter who grew up in a home where all they heard was negative feedback. Yeah, we need to set boundaries. We also need to catch them doing something right. So they're not living in fear. Maybe the most common, I've said it, I probably said it 3 times this last week. One of the most common things I say, and especially if somebody's got a big decision, I just had this conversation this week with the pastor looking to make a big decision. What about this? What about that? And I don't know. And I said, listen, don't take counsel of your fears. What is God calling you to do? Remember, you're meant for more. And so, man, don't always be a critic of your children. Distracted, critical, unfair. You ever heard that? That's not. Come on now, that's not. Right? God has sort of built into the human being a sense of justice. By the way, talk about the image of God. Our God is just. Don't just react to that. Maybe slow down and say, well, maybe it's not fair. No one's perfect. No parent is perfect, but try and be at least consistent. Distracted, critical, unfair, or hypocritical. It's just so hard on a kid to reconcile a mom or a dad who says one thing in public or at the church or on the job, comes home and does the exact opposite. That's hard. And there's a lot of folks in their, I had another conversation last week, in their 20s who've had to sort out that mom and dad weren't who they thought they were. I always encourage those people in the 20s, hey, this is the decade you're going to have to work that out, because from your 30s to your 70s, you're going to live your life. And man, as much as we can make it possible, be the same person wherever we are. All right, parents. Now let's talk about work. Okay? You know, let me say this. It's great. Mark 10, verse 16. It's a great narrative. It's a great story about Jesus. So he's at the height of his ministry, especially in the north part of Israel, in Galilee. And thousands are coming to see him. And the disciples are kind of like, pretty good to be on this train. We're doing good. Offerings are up. Attendance is up. Life is good. And so some people come through to Jesus. They make their way right under the front. And they're like, hey, here's my kid. Will you bless my son or my daughter? And the word is little children. The word in the text there in Mark is little children. So think of like a bunch of toddlers showing up. And the Bible says that the disciples got a little bit angry about that. And they stopped the children from coming to Jesus. This is the strongest emotional response Jesus ever had. It says he became indignant. That's a strong word. And he said to his followers, do not forbid the children. Let the little children come to me. And I love what Mark adds, Mark 10:16. It says he took them in his arms, as if to say, let me show you what I think about children. He took them in his arms and he blessed them. Parents, get your kids to Jesus. Parents, whatever else you do, whatever ages they are, get your kids to Jesus. Let him bless them. You've done your part. You've done all you can do. I don't know what to do with these kids. Get your kids to Jesus. Get them there and let him bless them. Now, we talked about how you deeply love classical music because it describes your relationship with your kids. I'm going to read this again, this description. And I want you to think about your job. I want you to think about the first day you showed up and didn't know what you were doing. I want you to think about the grind. I want you to think about the crisis that wasn't of your making, but you've got to solve. The first movement is usually explosive and driven with quicksilver shifts of mood and tempo. Talk about Monday morning. From unexpected silence to fierce outbursts. If you work in a cube farm, you know what I'm talking about. And the second movement, so we're getting into lunchtime now. The second movement offers neither rest nor relaxation from the first. It sounds uneasy and restless, right? Oh, you all love your jobs too? No problems at work? Or is your boss in there? Oh, all right, I got it, yeah. Here's our job. The mood remains intense throughout. Then it's 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock, whatever you have to catch your train. Then in the dazzling and exhilarating conclusion, the employee seems almost desperate to flee, to leave the dark and troubled world behind. that clock sounds, or the 5 o'clock sounds, or you're on the way. And the effect is sudden, unexpected, and extraordinary. And everybody bolts for the parking lot. Let's talk about our jobs. We talk about our kids. Our job is to know, love, and equip our sons and daughters for an impactful future. Let's talk about work. Let's talk about the place we spend the lion's share. How do I win at work? Verse 5, bondservants, let's just call it what it is. The word is slaves, those who were indentured or those who were servants of others. Obey your earthly masters with fear and trembling, with a sincere heart, as you would Christ, not by way of, this is such a great turn of phrase, isn't it? Not by way of eye service as people pleasers. The idea is when my boss has his eye on me, I'm working hard, I'm smiling, I'm doing the work here, and as soon as his eye is turned the other way, as soon as she's looking the other way, as soon as that meeting's over, I'm scrolling. But here's the same word, bondservants or slaves of Christ. Like ultimately, for whom is it that we work? How about this? Doing the will of God. Have you ever thought of your job in that context? Doing the will of God from the heart. Rendering service with goodwill. You know what that means? What's the old Disney, whistle while you work, whistle while you work? Smile on your face. Doing the will of God from the heart, rendering service with a goodwill as to the Lord, not to man. Knowing that whatever good anyone does, this he will receive back from the Lord, whether he is a bondservant or free. In other words, labor management doesn't matter in God's eyes. It just doesn't matter. He's going to honor you for every good thing you do. Now, business owners, employers, supervisors, masters, do the same to them. Let me just read you what one historian says. Do the same to them? In what is a shocking exhortation to slave owners in the first century, a Roman world, the writer admonishes his masters, treat your slaves the same way. Now, let me be clear. The employer-employee relationship is not exactly the same, of course, as master-slave, no matter how much we think it is that way. In the Roman world, about a third, they think as many as 60 million people would have been slaves. Now, different than American slavery, that dark part of our past, this was not primarily racially based. It wasn't if you were African American, you're a slave. If you were white, you were a slave owner. It's not that at all. This was often conquered peoples, or you could sell yourselves into slavery for debt. Okay, and then you'd work for X number of years, and then you'd buy yourself out of slavery. So it's not an exact correlation either to the employer-employee relationship, nor is it an exact correlation to what was the blot on American culture, that is slavery, that ended with the Civil War, or mostly ended with the Civil War. So, in what was a shocking exhortation to slave owners in the first century, the apostle admonishes masters, treat your slaves the same way. In order to deal with their slaves, here's what the culture would have done in those days. In order to deal with their slaves, owners were known to threaten beatings, sexual harassment, or selling male slaves away from the households, with the result that they would be parted forever from their loved ones. So Paul's exhortation is outrageous. This clause rejects all forms of manipulating, demeaning, or terrifying slaves by their masters. So, first let's deal with those of us who work for an organization, all right? We're not owners, we are in some sense employees. Employees owe the company respect, industry, and integrity. Respect meaning they are the boss, we are going to respond to that in a respectful way. Integrity means it's as though I'm serving the Lord. If I'm paid for 8 or 10 hours, I'm going to give 8 or 10 hours worth of effort. In fact, if I'm really good at what I do, I might give 10 or 12 or 15 hours worth of effort for that. Respect, integrity, industry. I'm going to work hard for what I do. All right, I'm going to do the job that they're paying me to do. Here's what I would say. If you will become great at your job, you will thrive at work. Your title means nothing in the larger world. You have the freedom and the agency to make a difference in your company. You have Proverbs 22:29 up there? I love this verse. The one who is skillful in work, and the Hebrew word there is the idea of your craft. What do you do for a living? The one who is skillful in work will stand before kings, not before obscure people. I just love that. You want to get noticed at work, stop complaining, and start outperforming the next person. That'll happen. In fact, Proverbs 14:23, Kent. All hard work brings a profit. Mere talk leads only to poverty. Scotty Vavrinchek, years ago, right, in a Proverbs Bible study, you took that, you printed it, you put it up on the company before you sold it, put it up on the wall in the office. Right? I mean, this is true for those who are owners, this is true for those supervisors, this is true for those who are doing the work-a-day, living in the work-a-day world. All right, that's employees. Employers owe workers respect, development, and fair compensation. Employers, we owe those who are serving in our organizations respect, development, and fair compensation. Respect means I don't treat them as a cog. One of the best management tools or tips I ever read was if you will treat your employees as though they're volunteers, or in our world, or in your world, customers, you'll never be without quality volunteers. Maybe the most important resource you have in your company is the people that work with you. Treat them with deference and respect. Listen to them. Do more than you think you should in caring for them. Development. I all the time in staff meeting, I say to them, the second most important thing I do is invest in you, meaning the workers of our church. The most important thing I do is make sure we stay on track with the mission and vision to which God has called this church. We had a perfect example of that this morning. 7 a.m. I get a call. Hey, Scott, like there's a bad smell in the church. We have the doors open. We've already called Nichols to come out. All right, now you're like, wait, what? It's okay. It was in here. And so, I mean, I think at that point maybe shaving around the edge of this November beard I'm growing out, and it's going to be here in a little while. And so, all right, well, you guys are on it. Sounds like you've done all the right steps. I got here around 8 o'clock, all set. It was actually some air conditioning unit out in the back or heater unit out in the whatever. I don't know what it was, but great. They got it done, and the tech people handled it, and the building people handled it, and one of our elders was out here on. I mean, great. Love that. If we develop that kind of initiative in those that serve on our teams, it's going to be great. Here's what I say to people all the time. If you will work yourself out of a job, you'll never be without a job. What I mean by that is if you will develop to be so effective in your team that you're kind of not necessary, you're going to get the promotion. So business owners, supervisors, your employees aren't the problem. You know what I'm talking about? You know what comes next, right? We're the problem. We've got to see those who work with us, or those who in some cases work for us, as valued assets to be developed, treated with respect and fair compensation. Long gone are the days where my dad worked for the same company for 30 years. He had the union step and lane raises and all that, and they went on strike once in a while. And no, that's not anywhere, hardly anywhere anymore. Your employees will go somewhere else. So it's up to us to create such an inviting environment that they love working here. They're valued, they're developed, they're fairly compensated. Now, sometimes they're just going to go somewhere else anyway because they're going to take their next step. I get it. Love that. In fact, that's kind of an exciting part of developing people up. But does that reflect the workplace where we're at? All right. I just heard it this week on a podcast. One author wrote this. People who were high in commitment kept deeply engaged in their work and their relationships. In other words, we can't just check out. God's called you as an employer, an employee, to give of your best as you serve Christ. 6 times in this paragraph, it says what you do as an employer, what you do as an employer, that's really what you're doing for the Lord. What I'm doing here is no more or less important than what you do when you clock in tomorrow morning. It's just a different context. Different context. People who are high in commitment kept deeply engaged in their work and their relationships. They handle stress far better than people with low commitment. And they actually experience a lot less burnout in the context of work. So employee, double down, be committed. Be fully engaged in what you're doing. Employer, make sure you're developing, treating with respect, developing and fairly compensating those who are doing the work around your home. I saw this week. It's a picture of stained glass. It's from Chicago, but they actually imported it, put it somewhere else. And what I love about that, of course, you see some of the scenes from the life of Jesus. Remember, stained glass developed during the Gothic Middle Ages. And what it did, they didn't have electric lights. They had candles, but they didn't have a way to let light into the room. Right? We didn't have all this. And so they would create stained glass, and then instead of just windows that were clear, they put usually 7, 3 on either side and 1 in the front above the altar, scenes from the life of Christ. Do you know what those stained glass windows did? They let light into a dark place, and they told us something about Jesus. You go to work tomorrow morning, you know what your job is? Bring light into a dark place and tell them something about Jesus. And you know what the thing about stained glass is? It's silent. I'm not saying you got to preach. I'm not saying you got to do a Bible study at work. I'm saying live your life in such a way people recognize, in the best sense of the word, it's not the average employee or the average employer. What's different? And when they come ask you, tell them. I said a moment ago, take your kids to Jesus. Take your sons and daughters to Jesus. There's another great narrative in the life of Christ, and it's from Matthew chapter 4, verse 16 through 19. It's when Jesus met Peter. They've been out fishing, and nothing happened, fishing, nothing happened. In this case, Jesus went to work with Peter. He said, hey, Peter, I want you to launch out into the boat. I want you to go out into the deep water. I want you to throw your net out on the right side of the boat. I'm sure Peter's like, bro. In fact, he even said, we fished all night, didn't catch anything. Like, I'm the fisherman here, you're not. But because you said so, we'll give it a try. What do we got to lose, right? He did it. The nets are like overcome. They're filled with fish. They're pulling it in. The boat begins to list on one side. They have to call their friends to help them. His best day fishing was the day he took Jesus to work. So, you get your kids to Jesus, and then you take Jesus to work. Okay? Do that. Take your kids to Jesus, and take Jesus to work with you. Let me pray for you. Father, so practical. Thank you so much for the gift of work. Lord, it's not a curse. It's a great blessing. The curse was pronounced on futility, work that doesn't amount to anything. And certainly there is that aspect in this fallen world. But God, help us to think more highly of our work, of our jobs. To know that whether we are an entry-level employee or top of the food chain, you are the one who is our master. You are the one for whom we work. You are the one ultimately that will not forget one good thing that we do. So help us, Lord, to do our best. And then God, again, for moms and dads, thank you for the privilege of parenting. Help us to know, to love, and to equip our sons and daughters for a life that is blessed by you and that brings blessing to the world around. Lord, thank you for your word. We ask this in Jesus' name. All God's people agree by saying, amen. Stand up.